Welcome to the Neural Implant Podcast, where we talk with the people behind the current events and breakthroughs in brain implants in an understandable way, helping bring together various fields involved in neuroprosthetics. Here is your host, Ladan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Neural Implant Podcast. Today, we have a special guest, Alie Caldwell, a.k.a. Alie Astrocyte of the Neuro Transmissions YouTube channel. This was a really cool conversation. Another science communicator, just like yours truly. And she had some really interesting stuff. I've been thinking a little bit about going into YouTube as well, and so it was kind of interesting to hear some of the perspective of somebody that has 50,000 subscribers, 100 videos out, and a little bit here about the process of how this works. And so for some of you, if you're interested as well, I think this will be a very good conversation, and then we talk about science communication. So enjoy. I am pleased to introduce the host of Neuro Transmissions, a neurotechnology or neuroscience, explainer YouTube channel, and it's hosted by Alie Astrocyte. But is that your real name?
No, it's not. Although I have had people try to make out contracts to Alie Astrocyte in the past.
Really?
No, I go by Alie Astrocyte online, but my name is Alie Caldwell.
Very cool. So tell us a little bit about this channel.
Yeah, so Neuro Transmissions is a YouTube channel all about the brain. It was founded by my partner and I in 2015. So he's a clinical therapist and I'm a neuroscientist by training. And we make videos on basically any topic related to the brain that we think people might be interested in knowing about. Okay.
And I've seen a bunch of them, and they kind of remind me a little bit of like Bill Nye the Science Guy, kind of, graphical things, and it's fun. Is that kind of what you're going for? Or what's your, demographic? What's your target audience?
Yeah, I think any sort of digital content creator has their work evolve over time. So when we started, there was definitely sort of a Bill Nye vibe to it that we were kind of aiming for. And I think we were just trying to create some laughter in what we were doing, because we started the YouTube channel with the goal of creating these videos that would break down the same topics you could learn in like an introduction to neuroscience class in college. But instead of being these hour-long chalkboard lectures, it would be these 5 to 6 minute long videos with animations to sort of make the concepts a little easier to understand. We got a lot of feedback that people actually didn't really care for like the Bill Nye kind of sound effects, that it was a little bit too goofy for people. So we've sort of pulled back on that a little bit, but it's definitely still evolving. I think our style it continues to change, and now it's a little bit less animation, although that's still present, and a little bit more sort of using B-roll and kind of explainer stuff to get points across.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess the Bill Nye, that is aimed for, like 10 to 15-year-olds or something like this. But then maybe, who's your target audience?
Yeah, our target audience are science-interested young adults. So the people who watch our YouTube channel are generally people who are seeking out this content and looking to learn something new about the brain. We actually get spikes in our viewership around exam time every year. So I definitely think we have a lot of college students watching our videos, brushing up ahead of tests and things. But we also have a fair number of just people who are generally interested in brain science, and especially our videos on different disease topics tend to bring in kind of a wider audience, because people often want to learn more about a condition or disease that either they have or someone they know has. And that sort of brings them to our work.
Yeah, that is actually kind of how, that's like 100% how I passed my master's. I would just, a few days before the test, a few days before like a final exam even, I would just watch tons and tons of YouTube videos. And it was really good because you would get things explained from different perspectives or different ways of explaining it. And it was really beneficial in this way. So I completely agree. And I think you may be responsible for a few degrees out there.
Yeah, I've had a few emails from people asking, if I can give them advice on getting into grad school. They're finishing their undergrads. And I'm always like, well, I can only speak to my certain experience, but can only give general tips, I guess.
Let's talk about this experience. Kind of how did you get into this? Not everybody starts a YouTube channel explaining neuroscience.
Yeah, it was really lucky for us just that our interests happened to align. So I started grad school in 2013, and my graduate program, the UC San Diego Neurosciences program, has this tradition of making parody music videos to advertise for this big social event that we host whenever a certain conference, the Society for Neuroscience conference, is happening in San Diego. So this started before I came to grad school. And my first year, we were hosting the party during the conference, and it came up that we were making this music video. And I was like, oh, well, do you want some help with the video? Because my partner is really into video editing. And at the time, he had a YouTube channel about comic books, so completely different topic. But my grad school friends were like, yeah, totally, we could totally use the help. And so he jumped on board and helped with all the filming and the audio. And we made this awesome video that went semi-viral. And we had a lot of fun working on it. And then after that, somebody sent us a link to the brainfacts.org has a video contest every year. And they sent us a link and they were like, hey, this would be perfect for you guys. So we checked it out. We decided to make a video. We entered a video in the contest and we won second place. And we had a lot of fun just working on the project together and sort of started to see like, okay, well, you know, he's really into this animating and editing and kind of trying all these new movie techniques and film techniques. And I'm into writing and science communication and outreach. And it just kind of happened to be the place where our interests met. And so we decided to launch the channel, and it's been growing steadily ever since then.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of lucky, I guess. And then, you know, he has experience with it, and then you guys kind of complement each other in terms of what's necessary in terms of a YouTube video. Was there any challenges kind of starting this up? And then I'm assuming you've gotten better.
Yeah. I mean, when I talk to people who are contemplating starting new science communication projects, I always remind them that you wouldn't expect to play at Carnegie Hall the first time you pick up a violin. Like, you have to practice and get better at it. And so definitely when I go back and watch earlier videos, there's some like, ooh, we could have done that better. But I try not to be too critical of the early stuff. But some of the challenges, I mean, I think the biggest challenge is just that neither of us does this full time. And so doing this work on the side can get challenging, you know, maintaining a good work-life balance. And especially when I was a grad student, where it's already difficult to do, you know, to have clean boundaries between your work and your home life. Now adding this like other major project added a whole other layer of that. And it's an interesting experience to have a creative project like this, you know, like essentially a small business with your partner, because it kind of, there's an opportunity there for there to be a lot of conflict and difficulties, but it's actually worked out really well for us. Just happens that our interests align, and we're very good at talking about different things and sort of compromising on issues related to this. So it hasn't been too bad. But yeah, I mean, and I think the biggest challenge is just the time. And when that comes up, you know, if we miss a video release or something, you know, we just move past it. If we don't put out a video when we meant to, then we didn't do it, and that's okay, and we'll survive.
So how many videos were you putting out, I don't know, per month, or what kind of rate? And then how much time were you guys putting into it? And then was it equal? Like, was he putting in more time, or you, or something like this, or how did that work?
It depends. It really depends a lot on the topic and the video at hand, because he does basically all the editing, although I'm starting to learn a little bit more of the editing, but that wasn't my area of expertise. And so he's much faster than I am. So generally he ends up spending many more hours on it, because editing is the most labor intensive part. But we aim to put out a video every 2 weeks. That's our goal. And for each video, we estimate that it takes probably between 20 and 30 hours, depending on the style of the video. If there's a lot of animating, that adds a lot of time. So that's the biggest sort of time barrier, I would say. But there's also, you know, the process includes, you have to pick a topic. So figuring out what topic you want to do, doing some research, getting an outline together, writing the script, doing the filming, which takes a couple hours. If you need any additional shots or, you know, off-site filming, that adds more time. And then just the editing, which happens basically in the evenings over the course of a couple weeks. So pretty much as soon as we post one video, we're working on the next one.
How does that look like? How do you choose a topic? How do you do the research? So it is a little bit self-serving. I am also thinking about doing something similar. You know, we had talked about this a little bit in the email, but I'm very curious about this. But I'm just so scared. I'm just like, I don't know who am I to say like what topic we should talk about and to teach it. Oh man, that's like a whole nother level. So I'm really nervous about that. So how do you do it?
Yeah. So I feel like you're kind of asking two questions. So the first question, sort of this like choosing topics and the process of doing the research. Usually we'll sit down every few months, we'll sit down and have a conversation about what videos we are thinking about, what we'd like to do. We'll look at a calendar to try and figure out if there are any relevant cultural events or, any kind of touchstones that might be good to make a video about. So for example, one of our latest videos was about the challenge, like the neuroscience of habits and why it's hard to make new habits because we're right after the new year and everybody's doing their New Year's resolutions. So we'll theme videos around different calendar events, but a lot of it just ends up being whatever we decide we're interested in doing. So it'll be like, hey, I've been thinking about making a video on, the neuroscience of cannabis. What if we did that? And then we talk about, what that would look like and kind of think realistically about the time it'll take, because some videos we can do completely in-house. We don't need any outside collaborators, and that it takes much less time than a video where we do work with somebody else who has some additional expertise. So in like the case of the cannabis video, we actually worked with some folks at a local dispensary and got sort of their perspective as, now that cannabis is recreationally available in California, like what do people who sell it think about these things? So that's sort of like the process of choosing the topic. And that evolves a lot because since it's not our full-time job, we don't have to be as concerned about making a video that lots and lots of people are going to want to watch. We can just make videos about topics that we like and that we're excited about. And it doesn't necessarily affect us that much if it doesn't go viral because we're not depending on it for income. In terms of whether or not I feel insecure about my ability to teach topics, I think that there's an element of just realizing that by the nature of your training as a scientist, you have knowledge that lots and lots of people don't have. And I think the process of doing a PhD is sort of designed to make you feel like you don't know anything because you're chipping away at the boundary of human knowledge. And so there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of blank spaces in what you're mostly doing. But when you step back and you look at all the stuff behind you, all the things that you had to clear out of the way to get to that edge, you have a lot of information. And we're not always the best people to talk about something. So, sometimes when we do videos about different diseases and conditions, for example, we like to invite our friends and colleagues who actually are either have those conditions or, maybe research in that specific area of neuroscience. And that's just fun for us too, because we get to talk to more people and bring more people in on the project. But I think the way that we make our videos is intended to be high level enough that I don't usually worry about being accurate or not, because usually what we're talking about is high level enough that I'm confident in whatever I've found and researched on this, that I feel good about my ability to assess the research that's been done on the topic and can incorporate that into the video. And we have, we get feedback from people. We haven't really had anybody freak out at us too much about anything. People will disagree with us, but we just try to take criticism in good faith. And if we feel like somebody has a point, then we'll discuss that in the comments. And there are ways you can add notes to videos if you make a mistake or something, so you can kind of own up to it. But yeah, I think in general, like people who want to do these kinds of things know more than they think they know. And especially if you come from an academic background, there's this heavy, heavy emphasis on, you don't really, you're taught to feel like you don't know anything. And another thing that I think a lot of scientists end up getting hung up on is this idea of accuracy. And people get really worried about simplifying things because they're worried it's not going to be accurate anymore. But the reality is that you can talk about most things using simple terms and it will still be accurate. It's not as detailed as you'd maybe like it to be, but it's still accurate. And it's accurate enough for someone who doesn't study that thing and who's never going to study that thing and will never read your papers about it. It's accurate enough for them to understand and to be able to absorb the information. So I think that combination of like different, kind of thinking about it from all those different angles has made me feel pretty good about it. But I also think that some of it comes from doing it for a while and getting good feedback, right? Like if I might have answered this question very differently if you'd asked me like the first year we were making videos.
Yeah, I guess you kind of gain this confidence from experience. And how many videos have you guys done? Maybe how many views? Kind of brag a little bit about your accomplishments.
That's a good question. We just crossed 50,000 subscribers. So we have a pretty good sized audience that continues to grow. And then total number of views, I don't actually know.
And then how many videos do you know?
I think we have over 100 now. It's a little hard to say because we also post videos that are like private videos for live streams and stuff for patrons. But I think we have a few million views now.
Very cool. And then you recently graduated from your PhD, so congratulations. So what's the next steps?
So I finished my PhD in neuroscience in August, and I went defended, and I took 2 weeks off, except 1.5 of those weeks were spent writing the paper on my dissertation research. So I took 5 days off. And then I started my current position where I'm the Bigelow Science Communication Fellow at UC San Diego. So this is a science communication position in branded communications. I'm technically employed by by UC San Diego Health, but I work with health sciences, oceanography, and engineering in all 3 of their media departments to work with their media departments directly on stories about the research in their departments, as well as to tell interdisciplinary stories about research happening kind of between the departments. So the whole goal with this position was to give someone interested in a science communication career this sort of unique experience, because branded communications is kind of a different arena, I think, than most people who transition from science into communications. Most people don't really go the branded communications route, but the goal is also to sort of bring my experience, with the YouTube channel and with my scientific background, bring that into the work being done in the media offices, because it can, I've been working with one of the departments on their YouTube channel and talking about how that can be improved, but also it's a little bit different. I think it can be different when a scientist is talking to another scientist than when you have someone who doesn't have any research background talking to a scientist. And so it gives me an opportunity sometimes to dig in a little bit more on some topics than I would have been able to if I had not done a PhD.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. I wasn't aware that you basically got a position doing essentially what you were doing, but I guess more at like a high level, corporate level or institutional level or something like this. So that's really cool. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just a fellowship opportunity, so it's not like forever, but I was really interested in it because it's this 9-month opportunity to get this very specific experience that is in a field that I think can be difficult to break into coming from the research background. Like, I don't have advertising or marketing training, and this is giving me that kind of training. And it's cool to see how, having been a student at the university, it's really cool to see how the media departments navigate the research environment and how they talk about the university research. It's an interesting space between like science journalism and marketing, and I'm really enjoying it. It's cool.
Cool. So in the meantime, the YouTube channel's going to be pumping out videos, and then I guess what's the long-term plan for the channel?
Yeah, we don't have a super definite plan. We've talked about it a few times. I definitely don't think it's going to be something we do forever, and we don't have any plans for that to become our full-time job. I like the stability of it being employed by someone else and not having to do kind of all my own work. And my partner really loves his career as a clinical therapist, so he's not really interested in leaving that behind. We're kind of trying to figure out our next career steps just in the next 6 months, because my fellowship will end at the end of May. And so we're trying to figure out where we're going to go next. It doesn't seem likely that we'll stay in San Diego. We're both from the Midwest, and that's where all of our family is from. So we're probably going to head back that way. And then from there, I guess just see, what kind of projects we have coming up and how the YouTube channel is doing. And we have a couple of other, so one of the great things about doing the YouTube channel is that it's led to a lot of other opportunities. And so we have a few other projects in the pipeline that we've had the opportunity to work on because of the YouTube channel. And so we kind of have to see how all that shakes out too. But I mean, it's been good so far, and I think we'll keep doing it for at least a few more years. It's fun to work on the project together. And my dream, I really want to hit 100,000 subscribers, because if you get 100,000 subscribers, YouTube sends you a big silver button, and I think that's pretty fun. So
Very nice. So what's it looking like? I mean, are you basically just doing like AdSense kind of YouTube revenue? I mean, you don't have to disclose too much, but is it self-funded, like passion project that you're only sinking money into, or is it spinning off a little bit too?
It was for a very long time. It was that. We have gotten to the point where so we have a Patreon account. So we make a little bit of money there every month. And then we make a little bit of money on AdSense every month. And that kind of combines. I would say we probably these days we put at least half of what we make back into the channel. And some of that's like stuff we could get away with not buying, but like it's, upgrading equipment or getting, new equipment that's going to make it a little bit easier for us to do things in different ways, kind of creative opportunities. But yeah, it's only been in the last like 2 years or so that some of that money's actually gone into our pockets and not just been, kind of paying off the debt burden that the YouTube channel itself brought. So yeah, I mean, we make it's like a couple $100 a month. It's not a lot, but it's a nice little sort of side thing and lets us justify continuing to spend money on the project.
Yeah, you essentially get free camera equipment or, computer upgrades or whatever. And yeah, like you said, you can kind of justify something a little bit more fancy because, it's for the business. So I'm kind of in the same boat. So what do you think? I mean, is this a good thing to do? I mean, would you recommend that other people do this, like students, or would you suggest that people are at a higher level, PhD, postdoc, professors before they start doing this, or could potentially high school students do this? And then maybe what are some tips for being able to start this?
Yeah, I think YouTube is sort of the highest bar for starting, I think, as opposed to starting with like just a written blog or social media science communication or even a podcast, right? Because you have not only the audio editing that you have to worry about that you have with the podcast, but you also have to worry about the visual editing and all the visual elements. The good news is that, you have a very strong computer and excellent camera in your pocket all the time now. So it's pretty easy to get started making videos if that's what you'd like to be doing. I think a big key to that is just really before you start, more than like needing equipment, figuring out what your goals are. Like, why do you want to make YouTube videos? What space are you hoping to fill, or what are you hoping to accomplish, or who are you hoping to reach? And why is video the best way for you to do that? And then think about, what makes your work unique. So what about your videos is going to stand out? What's going to bring people to your work? And then you want to lean into those things. So lean into what makes you unique and, find your niche. It's one of the cool things about the internet, right? Is you can get super niche because there's something out there for everybody. Then once you have a better idea of those elements, you can start to think more about the equipment, right? Like if you're just trying to do tutorials on sort of like physics topics, it might make sense to do a more blackboard, chalkboard style video. And in that case, you don't need like a really nice camera or anything because you can film that pretty easily. But if you're doing a lot more like documentary style stuff, or if you're trying to get like macro images of really small creatures or whatever, you might need a higher quality camera. Like we talked about at the beginning, like even now, like the iPhone headphones are decent quality microphones. And so you can start with really basic equipment and kind of level up from there as you build your audience. But I don't think it's necessary to dump a ton of money in from the beginning, especially because it is hard and it is time consuming, and it's good to do it for a little while and start the practice. Even if you don't end up posting any of the videos, just start getting that experience under your belt and making sure it's really something that you want to spend your time on.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I would echo what you said in the beginning, like, podcast versus video versus writing. Each one of those is basically an order of magnitude. I would say the podcast is an order of magnitude easier than a YouTube video, especially if you're doing something a little bit more like animation, like what you guys are doing. But yeah, definitely. You just kind of try it out, start it out. As you were saying, it's going to be horrible. You're going to be really embarrassed about it, some of your early stuff. But, you'll see if you like it. And kind of like you, I mean, like you can't really justify it financially, but like, oh, I'm going to put all this time and effort into it for a few $100 a month. You'd be better off, delivering pizzas or something like this. But if it's fun, then that's the most important thing. And if you're making a difference too, I would say, right?
Yeah. I mean, if people are finding it valuable, and I think a big part for me, I mean, this is like from a purely selfish perspective, both making a resource that people found valuable, but also you can get more out of it than just money in your pocket. And so for me, from pretty early on in the process of the channel, something I realized was this was an opportunity for me to build a portfolio. This is an opportunity for me to demonstrate, to stand out from a crowd in a lot of different contexts, to be able to say like, yeah, I'm a scientist, and also I know how to write for digital media and know how to write for YouTube videos. And that's a unique skill set that not a lot of people who are also scientists also have. And so I think thinking about it in that context of like, what are your goals? What are you hoping to get out of it is where that becomes important. Because by doing that, by making these videos, I did something that really stood out from a lot of my peers. And so even when our channel was pretty small, like under 10,000 subscribers, I was still having opportunities to attend like filmmaking workshops and science communication workshops because it was an unusual skill set and gave me those opportunities to like meet those people and make those networks. And I think that all build up into, all these professional opportunities and networking opportunities really built up into me being able to get the job that I have today.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely echo that. This podcast has been going for 3 years now, I think. Yeah, like pretty early on. I mean, I didn't even because brain machine interface is kind of a subcategory of neuroscience. My audience isn't as big, but it doesn't have to be because the whole field, the whole subcategory is pretty small. But yeah, like pretty early on, I was I applied to go to Society for Neuroscience as a press, and I got a press pass, and I was able to go, and they waived the $800 entrance fee or whatever, and I've gone to a lot of these places like for as press or even they pay for accommodation or whatever and transportation, so it's just really cool. And like, so of course it makes me feel really cool, but yeah, it's kind of cool. And then at these places you meet people that like really like your work, and they're like, wow, it's good to meet you, and I love this episode. I'm just like, wow, I can't believe somebody was actually listening to that. So obviously there was downloads, but I'm very happy that they were actually real and not Russian bots or something like that.
Yeah, it's really fun. I imagine you have the same experience where when you go to these, Society for Neuroscience conference is not a niche conference in neuroscience, but it's a niche conference in like the world, right? And so when you're in that environment where you have this like very high number of people who are interested in neuroscience, you're much more likely to run into somebody who knows you and knows your work as opposed to just like being out in the world, right? Like people recognize me at Society for Neuroscience who like would, never recognize me on the street.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have another podcast actually about traveling, and that one has bigger numbers because it's a little bit more mainstream. But I've literally never met anybody out in the wild, and that would actually blow my mind. Just like, what, really? But yeah, I think this is really cool. I mean, I kind of want to do this as well, and teach a little bit about this, but I'm still a bit nervous. I feel like I need to learn more to teach. Yeah, I think this is kind of inspiring stuff.
Yeah, well, if I'm being perfectly honest, I do not have any formal teaching experience. I have always thought of myself as a writer, and in this case, I just started writing. And it actually took us a really long time between the decision to make the YouTube channel and actually launching the channel because I wanted to write the whole first series, like have it all written before we even started recording. And so it was like, I think it was like 6 or 8 videos. And it took so long to write each one of those at the time because it was a new thing that I was trying, but it was just like, I want to do this. And it doesn't really seem like anybody else is doing this yet. And I think I can do this as good as the people who are already out there. So let's just do it. And you do learn a lot about teaching as you go and people give you feedback. But I actually think for me, the bigger thing was just feeling comfortable with public speaking and kind of being able to translate that into a video personality because everything, they talk about this, people make jokes about it, but you really do have to like amp things up on camera because it will not come across as intensely as you think it will. So you just have to get used to those like oversized gestures and extra excited voice.
Yeah, I was actually thinking like it might be good to have like a glass of wine before, and then that way you can actually like, I don't know, it might be a little bit more fluid, or you wouldn't mind yelling, and like you said, it would kind of potentially come across normal actually.
Yeah, I think that can add a degree of authenticity. Like that's my favorite state to give a talk in, honestly, is to have like a glass of wine or a beer before I start speaking. And when I've interviewed, I've done some other science filmmaking, and when I've interviewed other scientists to try and get them to like chat about their research instead of sounding like they're giving a science talk, I tell them, okay, so imagine that you're in a bar and you're with your buddy and he is interested in science, but like he's an attorney. He doesn't do science himself. And you're trying to tell him about something really cool that just happened in your research and you've had a couple beers, but the bar's kind of loud and you're really excited to get to tell your friend about this because you've never been interested in it before. Like, how would you explain it to him then? So just giving people that context to think about like, how do you explain something on camera that's different from just explaining something at a talk or explaining something casually.
That is pretty cool, actually. That's a good mindset, to come in, both as a host and as an interviewer or interviewee. I think that's a really good way to look at it.
I mean, you gotta get yourself in that loosened up mind state. And it's funny because the days that I'm, especially when we're filming, the days that I'm like in a decent mood and relaxed, it goes so much faster than the days when, if it hasn't been a good day or if I'm stressed or if I'm tired, it's so much harder.
Very cool. Well, Alie Astrocyte, this has been an absolute pleasure. Is there anything that I didn't ask that I should have asked?
No, I don't think so. I hope that some folks find this useful. I hope that you launch your YouTube channel. I think it sounds like a great idea. And definitely let me know when you do, because I'm a member of a community of educational content creators. I'm happy to send you the application to join the community. So just do it. Give it a try. Have fun. Enjoy it.
Hope you enjoyed the show and were able to learn something new, bringing together different fields in novel ways. Until next time on the Neural Implant Podcast.